Yes, yes, yes. Sean Spicer will be talking about my Magic career any second now. 14,000 points. Greatest player in Magic history.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Fantrax and Basketball Monster. And today's Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast is also brought to you by SeatGeek. Download the mobile app for the easiest way to buy tickets and use the promo code LOFANTASY to get yourself a $20 rebate on your first purchase. Of course, today's show is also brought to you by our Patreon sponsor of the day, and that is Chris Patterson. So thank you, Chris, for your support of the show. If you want to be a sponsor like Chris, head across to patreon.com/redrock_bball and support the show in any way that you can. I don't think I've mentioned it yet, but here we go now. My name is Josh Lloyd, and you can find me on Twitter at redrock_bball. So I do suggest you go and follow me there. My aim by the end of this NBA season is to get to 10,000 followers. I just like to see that instead of 8,824, I want to see 10K. That's my aim. I'm not far off it. So tell your friends, follow if you don't listen to this already. I want to get that 10K up before the season. I'm pretty confident we get there, but that's where I want to go at this point. Today's title of the show, as you can see, is Star Wars inspired. I went and saw Rogue One across the weekend, and pretty impressed with it. Just give you my Josh's movie review. Maybe we'll have that as a semi-regular segment. I don't go to the movies all that often, but yeah, when took Ben and we went and saw Rogue One on the weekend, and fairly impressed with it. So yeah, that was good stuff. Don't even know why I bothered mentioning that, but yeah, there you go. That's my movie review. If you're a Star Wars fan, obviously you've probably already seen it. I took a little bit of time to go and see it, but it was good stuff. Let's start talking basketball now because we've got lots to talk about. It was a pretty crazy day in the NBA, to be honest. So
let's get to it.
Okay, let's do that indeed. We'll talk monstrous line of the night to kick things off, and we're going to go with Kyrie Irving of the Cleveland Cavaliers in a game where the Pelicans took on the Cavs. The Pelicans were without Anthony Davis. LeBron had a triple-double. Kyrie Irving scored 49 points. You'd expect the Cavs to win that game. Yeah, not so much the case, as the Pelicans pulled off quite an upset on a day where it probably wasn't even the biggest upset on the entire NBA slate, which is such a weird day. But let's stick with Kyrie here. He had 49 points, which is obviously a lot of points. He hit 8 triples, he had 2 boards, he had 4 assists, 2 steals, a block. He was a perfect 11 of 11 from the free throw line. And he was 15 of 28 from the field, and that's something that Kyrie has been, and pretty much maybe not always is the wrong way of phrasing it, but he's a relatively high efficiency point guard. He's a 47% shooter this season, which is great for a point guard that takes 20 shots a game. You compare that with a guy, say, like Damian Lillard, who's talking 41, 42, 43%. It's a big detriment, whereas Irving's basically break even in that category. And that's a huge start when you're getting 25 points a game and 2.5 threes on that many attempts where you're not actually actively hurting the field goal percentage category. He's the 19th ranked player for the season, Kyrie. Yeah, pretty much on par, I guess, where he would have been drafted late second round in most cases. He's still only averaging the 5.6 assists. So that little run he had where he was getting all those double-digit dimes, that's cooled off. But 5.6 is okay. You can compare it with guys like Lillard and Isaiah Thomas, who don't get many assists. Kemba Walker, that's the sort of range that Kyrie's in. Over a steal a game, 2.5 threes a game. And been fairly consistent for the majority of the season. He's 18th over the last month, 17th over the last 2 months. They're pretty consistent numbers from Kyrie. And if you're in a league that's counting turnovers, he doesn't turn the ball over very much at all. 2.6 turnovers per game, which is completely fine as a point guard. Yeah, he's not getting you 10 assists a game, but yeah, he's pretty good in the turnover zone. So a huge night from Kyrie. I believe that might be his first monstrous line of the night for the season. But being just a consistently good player for the majority of the year. Interestingly, he played 42 minutes in this game, and he played 41 minutes the game before. So a lot of minutes coming for the Cavs players, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But some good stuff from Kyrie to get himself the monstrous line of the night. All right, now let's talk about today's sponsor, and that is SeatGeek. You guys know what SeatGeek is. The NBA season we're fully rolling with the NBA season. We're over halfway through the year. But if you want to go and see the stars of the NBA, if you want to go see my boy, which one of my boys do you want to go see? Do you want to go see Ivica Zubac? Do you want to go see Gianni Antetokounmpo? Do you want to go see Nick Jokic? You go see these guys up close and in person. The best way to get tickets to these games is through SeatGeek. It's not SeatGeek, SeatGeek. It's the easiest way to get seats for whatever you want to see, whether it's basketball, whether it's hockey, whether you're trying to get tickets to a WWE event, to a concert, to a Broadway musical. SeatGeek can help you out, whatever the sort of ticket you want is. You get the SeatGeek app on your phone. It's the easiest way to browse for tickets. In a couple of pushes on the screen, you can be getting tickets to see whatever you want to do. You can instantly find seats to games coming up the next day, over the weekend, later in the week, whenever it is you want to go. And with SeatGeek, you know you're always going to get the best deal on every ticket because SeatGeek price compares for you by searching multiple ticket sites and then giving you the range of tickets that are available and telling you this is a good deal. We've highlighted in green. This is not so good a deal. It's in red. So giving you the ability to see, hey, this is where I'm getting a really good deal. So that helps you get the most bang for your buck. Every ticket that you buy on SeatGeek is also backed with a 100% guarantee. So you don't have to worry about being shafted or missing out or losing money or anything like that. The next best thing, or not the next best thing, the absolute best thing is all listeners to this podcast get a $20 rebate off their first SeatGeek purchase. To get your $20 rebate, it's simple. Download the SeatGeek app, go to the settings tab and click add a promo code. Enter the promo code, which is LOFantasy. Locked On Fantasy, LOFantasy. SeatGeek will then send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase. Download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code LOFantasy today. Let's move on to the waiver wire line of the night, and it is everyone's favorite fantasy slut. I guess that's the best way of putting it. He's been on millions of teams this season. Everyone wants this guy to play minutes, and when he does, the numbers are really impressive. And of course, I'm talking about Terrence Jones. Tezza scored 36 points with 11 boards in Anthony Davis' absence. He hit 3 triples, he had 2 steals, he had 3 blocks. He had an assist. He was 13 of 18 from the field and 7 of 10 from the line. Realistically, it's one of the best lines that anyone's put together really as a waiver wire player all season. And Jones is putting up some good numbers. Now, I get inundated with the questions, do I pick up Terrence Jones? Do I pick up Terrence Jones? You can pick him up. No problem with that whatsoever. But be aware that this was in Anthony Davis's absence. And prior to Davis being out, what we see from Terrence Jones is he goes back to the bench and he plays 18 minutes. He plays 20 minutes because Alvin Gentry wants to run Solomon Hill, Dante Cunningham, and Anthony Davis as his 3-4-5. He doesn't want to play Jones and Davis. He doesn't want to start them. And he doesn't want to play them big minutes together. And that's just the way that Gentry's running things. So that limits what Jones can do. And you can look at what he's done the last 2 weeks and you can be impressed. And you should be impressed because Terry Jones is the 56th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. But it's coming in 29 minutes a game, and there's been games here that Davis has left. There's been games here that Davis has missed. And that's what is enabling Jones to put up these numbers. In those last 6 games over the last 2 weeks, over the last 7 games, Jones has started 3 of them. He also played 26 minutes in another one where Davis was hurt. And that really bolsters his numbers. It gives him extra playing time. You look at the games, in one game here against Orlando that Davis played, 18 minutes, 7 points and 5 rebounds with a 1-1, which is still not a bad line, but it's not enough to say absolute must-own guy. We don't expect that Davis is missing a huge amount of time here with this injury. He should be ready to go for the next game, so that will likely put Tezza back to a bench role to play 22 minutes, 21 minutes, that sort of zone. But on the off chance that Gentry changes his mind and says, I really liked what I saw from Jones here, let's keep him together, you own him and you hold on to him. And that's absolutely a fine move to make. But watch who you're dropping. As I always say in these scenarios, as I highlighted pretty extensively when the Kyle Korver trade went down, look who gets dropped for Korver to be added. Same here. Look who gets dropped. If you miss out on Jones, look who gets dropped for Jones to be added. Because that might be value for you. Because adding someone who's going to have a consistent top 100 value for the rest of the season is going to be a better option than Terrence Jones, who probably goes back to being outside the top 180 when Davis is back. I don't know that for sure because I don't know what Gentry will do, but we base this on the first 50 games of the season where Jones plays off the bench behind Davis and he plays 18, 19 minutes and he has mental mistakes that just screw him over, and it's been the course of his career. Put him on the court, when he plays minutes, the stats come, but he's not good enough to stay on the court. That's the problem with Terrence Jones. He makes too many mental mistakes, poor shot selection, bad defensive issues. Highlight plays, but some really bad decisions that he makes on the court that limits his ability to actually stay on the court long enough to be a fantasy useful player. But in a situation where Gentry's got no choice, like when Davis is out, then he goes nuts. And we saw that here today. So that's the risk with Jones, and I'm not saying don't pick him up by any stretch. I'm saying watch who you drop and have a look. Is there someone that's expendable? Then absolutely go grab him and see how this plays out. But every time we've seen this from Jones this season, and we've seen it multiple times that he'll come in and put these numbers up. It has happened numerous times this season, and then he goes back and does nothing because he goes back to the bench and he doesn't see the same minutes and he struggles. But by all means, grab him. I think it's a smart move. Just watch who you drop. The young gun of the night, Miles Turner of the Indiana Pacers, 22 and 10 for Turner. He had 2 blocks. He was 8 of 12 from the field and hit all 6 of his free throws. He was always in a good spot here, taking on the New York Knicks, and that's exactly what we saw from him. Turner is the 26th ranked player over the course of this season. He has had somewhat of a dip recently, but nothing to be too concerned about. 55th over the last 2 weeks, and that's because his block numbers had dipped to under 2 in that time frame. We obviously want them to go back up to 2, but what he is an elite percentage guy, 53%, 81 from the line, hitting 40% of his threes, getting you 7.5 boards and almost 2.5 blocks. Like, these are great numbers. Miles Turner's going to be a top 20 player, possibly as early as next season. He'll be this guy that's just a perennial top 20, maybe top 25 guy for the next 5 to 6 years. He's got a beautiful fantasy skill set. Points, boards, threes, blocks, and 2 high percentages. That's not a combination that's easy to get, and he is going to be that guy. Needs to expand his offensive game a little bit, and by that I mean get a little bit more in terms of touches. He's got a just above average usage of 21.5. I'd like to see that getting up to 24, 25 and see him using his offensive stuff a little bit more. And when that comes, that's when he delves into top 15 territory or something along those lines. Because again, threes and blocks, 2 percentages, very hard combination to get. You can get blocks and field goal percentage easily. You can get threes and free throw percentage easily. Getting all 4 together, not an easy task. One guy who might be able to do it, maybe Joel Embiid. Karl Towns can do it to a degree. Porzingis isn't a high field goal percentage guy. And Jokic doesn't get enough blocks. Turner can be one of these guys who's up there with Embiid and Towns as these players who are threes, blocks, field goal, and free throw percentage. And it's not an easy combination to come across. All right, let's move on to the dud of the night, and we're going to talk Tristan Thompson of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Tomo scored just 2 points and had 7 boards on 1 of 5 shooting. He didn't have any attempts from the line. He had just 1 block. It wasn't a great Tristan Thompson night. He is not a must-own player, and he is the 167th ranked player on the season. Now, when I say he's not a must-own player, that doesn't mean if you've got him on your roster that you go and drop him. That's not what must-own means. Must-own means that in every league he should be on a roster and you should be looking to see if it works for you, and in most cases it will. Thompson's a player with very specific skills. A little Liam Neeson-esque, I guess. He's averaging 9.7 boards. That is fantastic. He's shooting 56% from the field. That's a bonus. He's blocking 1.2 shots. A bonus. But he doesn't score. He's shooting under 49% from the free throw line, so that's a concern, and it's pretty punt. It is. He's a punt free throw guy this year. He doesn't get assists. He's at 0.7. He doesn't get steals. He doesn't hit threes. He's very much a categorical specialist, but that can be fine in certain situations. Shit, I need rebounds and field goal percentage. Thompson's my guy. If I'm looking for other things and I'm not so worried about those, either I'm way ahead or I'm not competing in them, then he's not worth owning. So in some leagues, he'll sit on the waiver wire, and that's fine. In others, then you can make real use of Tristan Thompson. But at this point, he is who he is. He scores 7 points, he gets 9 rebounds, he blocks a shot a game, and he shoots over 55%. That's Tristan Thompson. And see if it works for your team. It may not, but not a must-own player by the very loose definition of the word that I give it there. Let's get into these games now and talk about them in a bit more detail. There were 9 of them on Monday and some weird scenarios happening right across the NBA. The first one we take a look at was the Washington Wizards and the Charlotte Hornets. Good win for the Wizards on the road. Huge win, in fact, 109-99. Still some strange lineup decisions getting made. Thomas Satoransky, who seemed like he was back in the rotation for good, ahead of Trey Burke. wasn't in the rotation at all. In fact, the first guy to come off the bench was Sheldon McClellan, who came on when Brad Beal picked up 2 early fouls, and then Beal wasn't seen for about 12 consecutive minutes. So McClellan back in the rotation here. The only bench guys who have really any impact, though, are Kelly Oubre, who had 10 points with 2 blocks in 23 minutes. He's a nice, deeper league guy that if anything happened to any of these players, Markieff or Otto Porter specifically, Oubre would be a guy to add. And Jason Smith, who's pushed himself into a significant role, and what he is doing now is he is severely cutting into Marcin Gortat. The exact same thing that I thought would happen when Jan Mahinmi came, that Jason Smith is doing that now. Gortat played only 29 minutes here. That's 2 consecutive games under 30 minutes for Gortat, while Smith had 6 and 5 in his 19 minutes. Now, Smith is just a deeper league sort of player, but the impact he's having on Gortat is significant. And if it keeps going this way, Gortat's not going to be a player to own in 10-team leagues. He still is now. But if it continues along this path of Gortat playing instead of 38, 39 minutes, which he was doing for months, which was never going to work out well in the end, if he's not doing that, then he's not able to maintain top 70 value that he was doing. He's such a low usage player. Gortat was just 8 and 7 with a steal and a block here in his 29 minutes. That's really going to be pushing it in a 10-team league to be useful. So let's monitor it. But Gortat should be sliding down your list, and he should be very, very close to the drop zone. He's not there yet, but he's very close to it. And when Mahinmi returns, I reckon he automatically goes in that drop zone, because then you can have Smith and Mahinmi both going at him, and not that he's playing bad, but they don't need him to play 38 minutes. And if they don't need him to play 38 minutes, the dude's 32 years old, they won't play him 38 minutes. They'll play him 28, which is sort of how I envisage this position going at the start of the year. Johnny Wall had 24, 4, and 7, while Markieff Morris continued his pretty crazy hot streak. 23 points for Markieff, 8 rebounds on 62% shooting. He hit 2 triples in 41 minutes. He's as must-own as they come. Still owned in under 20% of leagues on Yahoo. Not really sure what's going on there, unless 20% of leagues aren't paying attention anymore, which seems weird that not one person in those leagues would be paying any attention, because Morris is a top 50 player, and he has to be owned in every scenario. Otto Porter doubled with 14 and 13, and as I touched on before, Brad Beal struggled. I believe he was, in the 2 games prior to this, he was 1 of 14 from the 3-point line. He hit 4 triples in this one for 18 points. On to the Hornets, Cody Zeller. Huge game from Zeller. You know what I'm going to tell you, he has to be owned. 13 and 9 for Zeller, 35 minutes, 3 steals, 2 blocks, good, all 5 from the line, good percentages, 57 from the field, fantastic stuff. Marvin Williams was also fantastic. He had 13 and 8 in 29 minutes. He had 4 assists. He had 2 steals. He had a block. That's probably Marvin Williams' best game. It's probably his best game of the season, I guess. Putting up these numbers, he struggled for the first 2 months of the year, and I don't know exactly what to do with Marvin at this point. I think you probably should own him in 12-teamers, but he's not a stronghold. He's not a guy that's got tremendous upside moving forward, but he can just be this guy that sort of hovers around 90 to 120, and that can have value. Marco Bellinelli played probably the most minutes he has since he returned from that ankle injury. He had 18 points in 29 minutes, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 steal there. A really nice points and threes streaming sort of player, while Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, with Bellinelli getting those minutes back, only the 27 for MKG, 8 and 7 there. So let's see how that rolls. But that was always the concern with Kidd-Gilchrist, is when Bellinelli got rolling again, we'd see Kidd-Gilchrist get his minutes reduced and limit the impact that he was able to have. Nick Batum, horrible, 4, 7, and 6 on 2 of 9 shooting. And in fact, Batum is a sub 40% shooter this season. He's not 100% a punt field goal guy, but you probably want to be leaning in that direction, while Kemba Walker was not great. 21, 2, and 5 looks good, but when you go 7 of 24 from the field for 29%, and you go 5 of 7 from the line, that just obliterates both of your percentages. Not a great start to the week in those categories. Let's move on to the next game now. Talk Sacramento and Detroit. Ty Lawson was annihilating the Pistons in this one. He had 19, 3, and 6, but still played just 23 minutes. So that's the interesting thing to me. So he was killing it, but he only played 23 while Darren Collison played 26. Collison had 12, 4, and 3, so a decent night from him. And this is what I'll just continue to say the same thing about these two guys. They're both fine to be owned in 12-team leagues, but their upside is so low because we just don't know what they're going to do on a game-by-game basis that if you own them, they're probably your 13th best guy. So how much can you hold on to them? Great stuff from Lawson, but we have not seen that from him all that often this season. And same with Collison. He'll have the occasional big game and then gets limited. But the fact that they're just going to continue to split minutes like this is the real concern with these players. And it's going to be tough to say, yeah, absolutely, go and grab these guys. But if you've got a spot open, yeah, go and grab one of them. I think Collison continues to get more minutes. Whether that means more production is a complete toss-up at this point. Boogie had 22, 14, and 6 with a pair of steals and a pair of blocks, while Will Cauley-Stein, probably his best game of the year, to be honest, 21 minutes for Cauley-Stein, 12 and 5 with a steal and a block. He got some extra run with Costa Koufos in foul trouble. Obviously, Rudy Gay out as well, so he was able to play some extra minutes here. I don't think we should be getting anywhere near excited for Cauley-Stein. In a 20-team league, maybe you want to grab him. He hasn't even been anywhere near 20-team league valuable so far, but I wouldn't be holding my breath. Garrett Temple played 34 minutes in Rudy Gay's starting spot, 11, 3, and 4, and I reckon that's almost spot on what you can expect from Temple. It's fine. There's zero upside with him, and then he can have the occasional night where the shot doesn't go in and it looks terrible. But that's okay at the end of your roster, but the upside to get better than that is not really there. Matty Barnes' best game since Gay went out as well, 25 minutes for 10 and 8 for Barnesy. He's got the better fantasy profile than what Temple does, but he's been pretty much a mess this season, so I don't really see the purpose in grabbing him. Well, Anthony Tolliver hasn't been able to take advantage of this increase in minutes here either. Aaron Aflalo, terrible, we know that. Malachi Richardson getting minutes in the first quarter is an interesting development. He's already leapfrogged Ben McLemore, and now he's got Aaron Aflalo in front of him. So we're not talking about tough challenges to get that spot. If the Kings, or when the Kings start falling out of contention for the 8th seed after this Gay injury, we might be starting to see some more Malachi Richardson. Now, Dave Yeager's been very confusing with him. No, we've got to get Malachi in. We've got to get him playing more. No, he's definitely playing more. Next game, DNP CD. And then the other day, 2 games ago when Richardson played in the first quarter, the question to the coach was, why did you use Malachi in the first quarter? Why did you insert him so early? Dave Yeager's answer, I don't know. Like, what? You can't see me at the moment. I'm doing the Nick Young meme face at the moment. I don't know. Like, just say, just tell the media, just say, I'm not telling you, or I'm going to lie to you. Don't say I don't know. Makes you look like a dickhead. We know that you're lying. Just say I'm not telling you. Simple. I'm not telling you. I don't know. Especially when you make some questionable decisions anyway. You're making out like you've got no idea what's going on. It fits into a lot of these things with some of these coaches. Just be... You can be honestly deceptive. It's easy to do. I'm not telling you. I don't want to divulge why we put him in. I'm not saying. It's between me and Malachi. It's between me and the team. Say that. What's the point of lying? Everyone I feel would understand more, or be more accepting if you just said, I'm not willing to discuss that. Like, we've got something we're working on at the moment, and we'll maybe speak about it at a later date. Okay, yeah, that's frustrating, but fine, whatever. I don't know. You just look like a dickhead. Anyway, on to the Pistons. They got smashed. They should have won this game. Reggie Jackson was pretty impressive, 18, 3, and 11, but it's the return of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, which the Detroit fans will be most pleased with. 37 minutes for KCP, 14, 5, and 4, 3 steals and a block. You don't love that he went 29% from the field. That's obviously horrible, but the other numbers are very impressive from Caldwell-Pope. So if he was dropped, and he was dropped in leagues, go and grab him again. Johnny Lua back starting, 28 minutes for John. 15, 4, and 4 with 3 triples there for Lua. So some good numbers for him. As I said the other day, if Lua was a guy that you wanted on your roster before he got injured, if he fit what you were doing and he was ownable then he's ownable now. Nothing changes. He's back into this 29, 30-minute starting role. Toby Harris goes back to the bench. Everything just remains as it is. Now, Harris did go back to the bench. He had 15 points in 26 minutes in this one. Marcus Morris, this is the Marcus Morris that I know and love. A lot of minutes for nothing. 38 minutes for Morris, 13 points with 3 rebounds. Now with Lua and KCP back, Morris is not going to have the same usage level that he had before. And he requires so much playing time to do so little with numbers or produce so little stats that he's a guy that you should really only be looking at as a stopgap 12-team league guy or a must-own 14-team league sort of a player. Reggie Bullock remained in the rotation ahead of Stan Johnson, 11 minutes for Bullock, while Johnson just played 3. Bullock had been starting in place of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So that's something that's interesting for deeper leagues, I guess. It also makes Stan Johnson a fairly good, very buy low player in dynasty leagues. San Antonio and Brooklyn, what a weird game this was. Tone Parker ruled out, we knew that. Pau Gasol ruled out, and as I touched on yesterday, it was pretty unlikely that Manu Ginobili was going to play. He was out. And then Kawhi Leonard was out with a sore hand. And then Pop just said, and this is what I mean about being dishonest and being honest with the media. The shit teams are the ones that are deceptive. The good teams just say what they need to say. Pop said, he's injured, but he's not injured. He's got somewhat of a sore hand, but he's not really hurt. We're just giving him a day off. Right? That's fine. You're not talking shit. He's got a bit of a sore hand. He's not really hurt. We're just giving him a day off. If that had been the Kings or the Magic or one of these other crap teams, he would have been out there, oh, no, I don't know. We're sending him for MRIs. No, it's just something that's been bothering him for weeks, and we're not really sure how long he's going to be out for. They just would say shit like that. Pop is just honest, and it's exactly what the good teams do. Maybe they got more leeway, to be honest, but still, the other shit doesn't work. The other thing that Pop did in this game is something that maybe Pop's a listener to this podcast. When Pau Gasol went down, my immediate thing was Dwayne Dedmon's going to start because that's what they've done previously, and he is a center and he provides some defense. What they did in that game where Gasol hurt himself in the warm-up, Lee started, and I said, you know what, I think this is just an emergency situation. It's a case of Gasol's gone down. Shit, we're 10 minutes away from starting the game. All right, Dave, you go and start. You can adjust to things. I don't want to change everything up about how we run things and put Dwayne in there. Let's keep him in his role. And I thought that might be the case. But the next game, David Lee went out there and played 36 minutes again. I went, okay, I'm wrong. I thought that Dedmon would be the perfect substitute for Gasol. He'd be the perfect guy to fit. Well, Pop obviously thought the same thing for this game now, and he went to Dwayne Dedmon at center. Dedmon played 29 minutes. Dave Lee played 25. I don't know if this will stick. I guess we'll get a really good view of it against Toronto on Tuesday to see if that's what they're going to do. But this is how I thought that they should go, and this is how I thought that they would go when Power went out the first time. Dedmon had 10 and 8 with a steal and a block on 80 and 100% from the field and from the line, respectively, in 29 minutes. If Dedmon is remaining a starter, then he's a guy you want to grab. I don't know that he's remaining the starter just at this point. I would guess that he is. That is my guess. Because, again, it makes the most sense to me, and it made the most sense to me before, but I was wrong the first time. I think that Dwayne Dedmon remains starting. If Lee continues on the bench, now he had a nice 15-7 game off the bench, that's fine. I'm not dropping him just yet, but he moves very much into the drop zone if he's playing 21, 22 minutes off the bench and Dedmon's get 28 to 30. That's just simple mathematics, I guess, that instead of playing 35, he's playing 24, then Lee's not going to be worth holding in that case. But I'm not dropping him just yet. But it is going to be very telling what happens against Toronto. DeJounte Murray made another start, 22 minutes for Murray, 4, 6, and 3. Wasn't his best game. He looked a little bit lost at times in this one, made some crucial errors early on, but still, it's not a horrible fantasy line, and I still maintain everything I've said over the last couple of days that I think he's going to be the next starting point guard for this team. While Pat Mills had 20 points in 20 minutes, 4 triples. I don't really... Look, you can add either Murray or Mills for Tuesday, low volume game day, and get some numbers out of them. But holding Mills past that is not going to be worthwhile. LaMarcus Aldridge had a big one, 16, 9, and 5, 2 steals and 2 blocks, so got it done defensively. Well, Dan Green middled along at 9 and 2. There's no reason to hold Danny in 12-team leagues, I don't believe. John Simmons, I thought he was going to be in for a fairly decent increase in role with Manu out. Wasn't the case, 11 points in 19 minutes, while Kyle Anderson stepped in for Kawhi and had a very Kyle Anderson game. 14, 3, and 3, a steal and 2 blocks. I like Kyle Anderson. He's disappointed me a lot this season, but I do still believe in him. I think he probably needs to go to another team to fully realise what he can do. And he's going to go back and probably play 5 minutes in the next game. So nothing to do with him this season. But he is a name to watch for the future because his game is fantastic for fantasy. A forward who can get steals, block shots, grab boards, pass, hit some threes. That can be a really useful fantasy guy. He just needs the minutes, and we saw that today, but that's not going to be forthcoming every game. For the Nets, Karis LeVert was out resting. Joe Harris was out with an ankle problem, so we got Randy Foye starting. So they're just continually switching this starting shooting guard. Continually switching the starting shooting guard role in Brooklyn. Randy Foye got it today. He had 30 minutes and scored 1 point. It's pretty safe to say that you don't need to go and add Randy Foye anywhere. 4 assists for Foye there. Isaiah Whitehead had the best game of his career, 19 points with 3 assists. And Spencer Dinwiddie, who started, played 32 minutes and had 13, 2 and 2 with 2 blocks. Now, Jeremy Lin is out for the next 3 to 5 weeks. If you don't have an IR spot, you've got to move on from Jeremy Lin. You can't afford to hold zeros. There are people who are tweeting me who have got multiple zeros. I've got Jeremy Lin and Chris Paul. You can't afford to have multiple zeros for these weeks unless you're 20 games up in first spot. You just can't afford it. Lin, they're going to take it easy with him. He had another setback with his hamstring problem, and we might see him at some point at the middle of March, maybe. Probably start of March. But that's not going to really be helpful for fantasy leagues in the most part. I think you got to move on from him. Dinwiddie and Whitehead aren't great picks. They're like 16 to 18 team league sort of players. Brookie Lopez was disappointing, 12 and 4 in his 21 minutes, while Trev Booker had 9 and 4. I don't think that Trevor Booker is a must-own player. As for LeVert, I'm super high on LeVert. I don't think that LeVert gets 30 minutes a game in the near future. It's the way that Brooklyn is handling things. We're seeing it all season with Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. We're seeing it with pretty much every one of their players, that no one is getting 30 minutes apart from Lopez on most nights, and Lin was getting close to it before he got injured. LeVert, I just don't see them going to him, especially when they're sort of maintaining him. That's not a right word. Maintaining his health by giving him rest days, coming off that foot issue. I don't see them rolling him out there 30 minutes a night, especially if they're just being unwilling to unleash Rondae as well, who's played very well recently. I love LeVert. I think he's got a ton of potential, but I'm getting very skeptical that he's going to be able to have a chance to crack the top 100 this year. I think that next year he will absolutely be that guy that is drafted in every league. I'm fairly confident of that at this point. But for the rest of this season, if you own him in a 12-team league and you're anywhere that's not a top 2 spot, I think you move on. I really can't see the purpose, because I just don't see the clear pathway for him getting 27 plus minutes a night, unfortunately. I'd love it to happen. I'm just not sure we're at that spot just yet. All right, let's talk Los Angeles Clippers and the Atlanta Hawks. Blake will be back on Tuesday for the Clippers. He was out of this one, so that's going to impact one of the guards. Austin Rivers played 41 minutes. He scored 27 points with 4 rebounds, 6 assists, and he hit 5 triples. It's a huge performance from Rivers. I think that Rivers remains as the starter. I think Felton goes back to the bench. Rivers is currently playing the 3, but we saw the other day when they put Mo Spates into the starting lineup that Felton went to the bench and Rivers remained starting. I think that's what they'll do. Rivers is a good player. That might be uncool to say, but he is a good player. And he should be owned in every league at this point. I would still be okay holding on to Felton at this moment, but he's going to quickly descend into a guy that you don't need to own when Blake returns. 14, 5, and 3 for Ray in his 30 minutes here, while Jamal Crawford dropped 19 points. Took him 20 shots, but he did have 19 points and 4 assists there. Goes without saying that no need to own Jamal. While with Blake on the horizon, Maurice Spates played only 10 minutes for 3 points. He is going to go back to being a backup center, backup center only would be my guess, and that's going to mean you can leave him for the 16 to 18 team leagues. Also, Luke Marmute, what a line. 12 and 7 for Marmute. 1 assist, 2 steals, 4 blocks, 4 of 8 from the field. 4 of 5 from the field. It doesn't really get any better than that for Marmute. And when I say that, that's not a figure of speech. Like, it would literally never be better than this for Marmute. So don't get overly interested. Don't get overly excited. He'll go back to doing sweet FA after this. JJ Redick had 17 points, while DeAndre Jordan attempted 1 field goal. He had 7 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists. With Blake coming back, he is going to be a little bit more involved in the offense as Blake's able to get it to him. So we expect his numbers to come back up. Dwight Howard, 16 and 12 with 2 steals in a loss for the Hawks against the Clippers. A decent night from him. And Paul Millsap was great across the box score. 19, 8 and 7. And he had himself a Richie Beno.
2 for 2.
So he had 2 threes, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Paul Millsap is outside the top 35 of this season. Heading into the season, he was one of the players I was quite concerned about. I said he's 31 years old. He has to play next to Dwight Howard now. I believe that a decline will come. I didn't think that it would necessarily be as steep as it has, and we've seen his field goal percentage drop off significantly, and we've seen his block numbers drop really, really significantly as well, down from 1.7 to 1 a game, and that's causing that drop off. Playing with Dwight, the age factor, I was concerned about him, and it's turned out to be the case. I just didn't expect it to be this severe. Kent Bazemore turned in a good game, so that's great. 25 points with 2 assists and 2 steals for Kent. He took 21 shots. A team that's allowing Kent Bazemore to take 21 shots will never win, and the Hawks didn't. Can you own Kent Bazemore? Of course you can. Do you need to? No. No, because he's just so inconsistent. He's not good, and he's inconsistent, which is not a great combination. Dennis Schroeder had 21, 6, and 7, while Thabo scored 11 in his 30 minutes. I don't think Thabo is a good option for 12-team leagues. Speaking of Thabo, the Milwaukee Bucks had a great question today on their broadcast. I did tweet it out, and they said, they were talking about Clint Capella. And they're saying, Clint Capella is from Switzerland. There have been 4 players born in Switzerland in the NBA, and I'm sure all of you know the 2 of them off the top of your head, and one of them's Capella, and the other one's Thabo. And the other 2, once they said them, I knew it, but yeah, you're never going to guess it, so have a think about it now. You can tweet towards me and tell me who you think the other 2 players are, and I'll let you know in approximately 5 minutes. Tim Hardaway played 23 minutes, 3, 2, and 4 on 1 of 6 shooting. I do not believe that Tim Hardaway Jr. is a 12-team must-own player at all. This is what he does semi-regularly, and it's just not good enough. I would rather stream that spot, add him in occasionally. He just doesn't have the consistency to be considered a must-own guy. All right, I'll give you the answer to that trivia now. The other 2 players born in Switzerland who are in the NBA at the moment are Nikola Vucevic and Enes Kanter. So Vucevic is a Montenegrin and Enes Kanter is Turkish, but they were both born in Switzerland. And as soon as they said that, I knew that, but there was no way I was going to be able to remember that. Remember that fact. Shout out to Cosmos on Twitter who knew the Vucevic one, which he was the only person who responded to me who actually knew that Vucevic was born in Switzerland. And if you don't follow Cosmos, I do go suggest that you follow him. He has some fairly hilarious NBA takes. All right, let's move on to the next game. Golden State and Miami. Much like Kyrie getting 49, LeBron triple-doubling against an Anthony Davis-less Pelicans, you think the Cavs will get the win. When Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry all score over 20 points, and the Warriors take on a Miami Heat team without Justice Winslow and, of course, Chris Bosh, and a Heat team that's one of the worst in the entire NBA, you expect the Warriors to get the win. Well, not so fast, my friends. The Heat get the victory on the back of Dion Waiters. We'll talk about the Heat in a sec. Let's start with the Warriors. Durant, yeah, he was good, as usual. 27, 6, and 3. Klay had 22, 5, and 1 with 2 steals, while Steph had 21, 8, and 10 with 3 triples. So some good numbers from their 3 studs. Not a lot else happening with the rest of the team. Draymond is in a real slump. He's barely inside the top 50 for the last couple of weeks. 7, 3, and 7 with a steal and a block. And a lot of it's coming because he's shooting just 40% from the field. He's under half a 3 a game. He's under a steal a game. It's a real buy low opportunity for Draymond here. If he gets the field goal percentage back up, the steals back up, the threes back up, then he's going to vault back into that top 20 zone. But for now, he's in a real slump. Now's the time you try and target him. And again, a buy low player is not offering your top 20 player for Draymond. It's offering your top 50 player for Draymond, buying him at his current value and hoping that he returns back to the value that he was before. And if you don't do that, then you let it pass. Zaza Pachulia, 27 minutes, 6 and 9 with 2 steals. His minutes and his production is going up, and he is a 14-team league guy, and in certain situations, there is no issue with considering him a 12-team league guy. As dumb as that sounds, in certain spots, much like Tristan Thompson we discussed earlier, he can have value in the right circumstance. For the Heat, Dion. What is going on with Dion Waiters? Back-to-back 33-point nights for Dion Waiters. 6 triples, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal. But let's cast your eyes a little bit to the right of that box score because he went 65% from the field. And if there's one thing we know about Dion Waiters, he is not able to shoot this well. In general, this is a very, very hot run. It's coming with Tyler Johnson and Josh Richardson out, and by all means, own him and own him for now. When these two blokes come back, A, Waiters isn't going to be able to shoot at this level, and B, he's not playing 33 minutes a night. He's playing 27, 28 maybe. And he's not being this impactful. He's not handling the ball as much. He's not being the guy that they necessarily give the ball to for the game-winning shot to take a one-on-one against Clay and drain a pull-up three. Like that's just not what's going to happen. Not a lot else to talk about, really, for the rest of the Heat. Hassan Whiteside was poor, 10 and 15 in his 36 minutes on 4 of 13 shooting, so not a great night, but at least he stayed on the court against the Warriors, which is something that centers don't often do, while Goran Dragic had 19, 4 and 5, but he was horrendous with his shooting, both from the field and especially from the line, where he went 8 of 13. Jimmy Johnson. He did not make us proud. That's 3 straight stinkers in a row for Jim. Only the 9 points with 4 assists, but still had 2 blocks, and the 4 assists are still nice. I'm still holding on to Jim. It looks poor on the surface, but overall the line is not terrible. I would still hold. Wayne Ellington had a good game. 9 points with 2 triples, but he got 4 steals. Let's chalk that up to fluke. He also was 3 of 12 from the field, so that's a little bit more Wayne Ellington-ish. He's more an 18 to 20 team league guy until Richo and Tyler Johnson return. All right, let's move on to this Cleveland and New Orleans game. Talked about Kyrie. LeBron played 44 minutes. Remember that discussion? LeBron's going to take his foot off the gas this year. He's going to really ease up the minutes. He's going to play very few minutes. I even had some people legitimately tell me at the start of the season, no, LeBron probably played just about 30 minutes a night. That was never going to happen. And look, we're talking about a January game against the Pelicans, and LeBron's playing 44 minutes. Foot off the gas, my ass. He's still playing a shit ton of minutes. He had a triple-double, 26, 10, and 12. 2 steals, a 3. A great night from LeBron. I'm sure there'll be some rest days coming, but the Cavs aren't in a position to really be resting guys at this point. They're not playing that well. Kevin Love played 38 minutes. So this is a game where Kyrie played 42, LeBron played 44, and Love played 38 in a non-overtime game against an Anthony Davis-less Pelicans, and they lost. Love 22, 16, and 6. A really good night for him, while Iman Shumpert continues to be solid. 10 points, including 2 triples in 28 minutes for Shump, with 2 assists and a steal. He can be owned in 12-teamers, not a must-own, but he's in that group of about 40 or 50 guys that can come in and out and sit on your roster depending on how the way you built your squad is. Kyle Korver, owned in 62% of leagues, 8% more than Cody Zeller. Traitorous. It shouldn't happen. There's no reason to own Kyle Korver in 10-team leagues. None. There's no reason to own Kyle Korver in 12-team leagues. None. This is what I sort of expected to happen. He will get used to things and he will play a little bit better. Not enough to make me consider keeping him, though. On to the Pelicans. Terry Jones was great. Drew Holiday was fantastic. 33 points for Drew, 39 minutes, 4 triples, 6 rebounds, 10 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. It's a fantastic all-round line, and he just narrowly missed nabbing the monstrous line of the night off Kyrie. 12 of 19 from the field for 63%, hit all 5 of his free throws as well. Really just huge numbers from Drew. And after this performance, I got questions, do I sell Drew Holiday high now? No, this is a good night from Drew, obviously. But he's a top 20 player when everything is rolling. He can be a top 20 guy without any question whatsoever. So, no, you don't sell high on this because this is a level that I believe that he can get to. This is not a one-off fluky. I guess 63% is fluky. But he can be a guy that scores. He is so underrated, Drew Holiday. Really going to be interesting to see what happens with him in free agency next year. He is very, very good. And hasn't had injury problems for 2 years. So, again, how long does it take for the injury-prone tag to go? But he hasn't, apart from getting a smack in the face and breaking his eye socket, not his fault, nothing to do with injury proneness at all. He hasn't been injured for the last 2 years, which is obviously a great sign. Let's hope that it continues. But he is hopefully surging forward after a really weird start to the year where he couldn't hit any free throws. But maybe it was a factor of, he missed training camp. Working his way back in throughout December and early January, and now that's his camp done and he's ready to go. Let's hope that's the case. Donatas Motiejunas also had his best game as a member of the Pelicans, and it's almost as though someone told Alvin Gentry, they tapped him on the shoulder and went, Alv, do you know that Motiejunas is actually a center? You don't have to play Omer Ashik and you don't have to play Alexei Ajinça. that you've got a guy here that's a centre, so on nights when Davis is out, why don't you play more than 7 minutes? It's like someone had that conversation with him. I hope they did. 24 minutes for Donuts, 14 and 5 with a steal and a block and 2 triples. Great stuff. Deeper leagues only at this point. Dante Cunningham, 11 and 6 in his 31 minutes, while Bud Hield had just the 3 points in 18 minutes. He's owned in 67% of leagues. What is going on? Why is he owned in so many leagues? No, my mistake. I take that back. That's Tyreek Evans. That's the player above him on my list. Bud's owned in 34. That's more realistic. He's a 16-team league guy, maybe 14-team leaguer. He's going backwards at the moment over the last couple of weeks. Had that nice little strong stretch towards the end of December. He's starting to go backwards at the moment, and his playing time is suffering. Solly Hill did nothing. That's pretty standard. And good to see Sheikh Diallo played 1 second, because that's always useful to get in there for 1 second. Lang Galloway had a nice game, 12 and 6 with 3 triples in his 29 minutes, but he is as up and down as almost anyone in the NBA. Just really a very deeper league sort of guy. While Tyreek Evans, the last time Anthony Davis was out, Tyreek Evans' minutes restriction didn't count. No, we don't care about your knees, Tyreek. Anthony Davis is out. Please go and play 28 minutes. In this one, he played 12 minutes. So if you can work out what Elvin Gentry is doing, please let me know. I don't know what Gentry is doing half the time, and to be honest, I don't think most of his players know what he's doing. I don't think Elvin Gentry knows what he's doing a lot of the time. If you own Tyreek, let's just chalk this one up to a stinker and continue on. And he's a guy that should be owned in all leagues. Speaking of coaches that don't know what they're doing, let's talk Houston at Milwaukee. The Bucks did get the victory, so I have to give Jason Kidd credit for that. 127 to 114. Let's start with the Houston side of things. Clint Capella back in the starting lineup, and Ryan Anderson rejoined the team. 29 minutes for Rhino, 16 points with nothing else, and that pushed Sammy Decker back to the bench, and he played 16 minutes. I guess that's to be expected, but what the good thing about this is that Decker played 16, Corey Brewer played 7. Corey Brewer played 7 minutes, he had a 7 trillion. Decker's got that role wrapped up fairly considerably, but there's no reason to even consider that he is going to be getting value enough to be a 12 or even 14-team league guy at this point. Clint Capella, 22 minutes, decent game, 16 and 3 with no blocks. Nice stuff from Capella. So the questions are going to come. Do I add Capella? 22 minutes is a concern, and you could chalk it up to, okay, he's just getting back from the injury. But before the injury, in about the last week or so before he broke his leg, this is what he was playing. He was playing 22 minutes a night. He had come down from 26 or 30 minutes a night, which he was getting early mid-November. He was down to 22 a night. So maybe this is what D'Antoni is going to do. And remember, if you're adding Capella, watch your free throws. Where are they sitting? Can you afford a guy that potentially is going to kill them? If you're a top 1 team, if you're the best in free throws sitting at 84%, then maybe you're right. If you're a 77% guy and you win 60% of your matchups in free throws, then Capella's going to mean you win 40% of them. And that's not going to be useful. So pay attention to it. The table, Montrezl Harrell, 4 minutes. Probably move on from him. We saw Nene play 22 and had 17 and 7 with 2 blocks. A good Nene night. Now, Harrell could easily play 15 or 16 in the next game, but for us to think that he's going to go back and play 25 a night, I just don't see that happening. No reason to continue to hold him in any 12-team leagues, I don't believe. Jimmy Harden just missed the triple-double, 26, 9, and 12 with 4 steals and a block, and was fantastic with his percentages, while Trevor Ariza only scored 8, but 5 boards, 5 assists, 4 steals and a block, and getting it done in all those other areas. Also a good Pat Bev night as he scored 18. Onto the Bucks, Jabari Parker back in the starting lineup after that 1-game suspension. Suspension meaning he came off the bench, moving Thon Maker out of the starting lineup back to DNP CD. And the Bucks made a change to the starting lineup. John Henson. And this is the Jason Kidd logic, right? We're playing well. Greg Monroe's getting 28 minutes a night. He's killing it. John Henson's getting 14 minutes a night because he's terrible. So Jason Kidd's theory then is, you know what we better do? We better limit Monroe and put him under 20, and we better start ramping up John Henson's minutes. We better move him from 14 minutes a night, Henson, and start playing him 21 or 22 minutes a night. Because that's what's been happening. The trend has been Henson moving from 13 to 14 to 17 to 19 to 21 to 23 as Monroe goes from 30 down to 17. And that's been happening the last 3 or 4 games, which, not coincidentally, the Bucks had lost them all. So we're making a change. John Henson's not the starter anymore. It's Miles Plumlee. Yes, Miles Plumlee, who basically has not played for the last 2 months, is now back to being the starter. So what does John Henson do? The guy whose minutes were ramping up at the expense of Greg Munro, well, he moved from starting to not playing at all. Yes, John Henson's not a good player, but one of the reasons why I don't think the Bucks will ever be a good team with Jason Kidd coaching, I think that they need to Mark Jackson him. Okay, you've built this young talent in, let's get a proper coach in now who's got a plan and a thought process and a theory to actually take this team to the next step. Let's do that. I think they should Mark Jackson him. The reason his teams will never win is because he doesn't know what he's doing. He has no ability to set a plan. He's got no ability to set a plan and stick to a plan. He's got no ability to stick with something for more than 5 minutes, it seems. The logic that he makes in his decisions make no sense. Majority of the time, they make no sense. He can't ever stick something out, except when he has a stubborn view like Munro can't start. I don't care if Munro starts. You know I don't care. But he needs to play the most minutes. But he's got this stubborn idea in his head he can't start because, again, starters only ever match up with starters and they only ever play with starters. That's the way the NBA works, didn't you know? You own whatever group that you start with, they're the only players you're allowed to play with during the game, not the other 20 lineup combinations that happen. So Munro can't possibly start a game. For those first 5 minutes, that's when all hell breaks loose. Can't do that. You've got to put a guy that you haven't even thought was good enough to play for the last 2 months. You've got to put him in there. Now, Plumlee did all right. He had 10 points, he had a block, he played 20 minutes, that's fine. And to be honest, I think he's probably a better player than John Henson. So I've got no issue with Plumlee playing. It's the thought process or the lack of thought process or the lack of an ability to formulate a long-term plan and stick with it that really makes me think that Jason Kidd has no future hope to become a good coach. He had flukes through these little runs and then they struggle and then he makes up his mind and changes his mind and changes things on the fly. Daly started again. That looks like that's been the case. Now, Daly now is playing more minutes as a starter than he was as the starter before he got injured, which was before Malcolm Brogdon had his breakout. So we had Dellavedova with no one challenging him for minutes, playing 27 a night. Brogdon comes in, plays fantastically, plays better than Dellavedova, and then Kidd goes back to Daly and decides to play Daly more minutes than when he was unchallenged before. Now, Brogdon's still getting his 30 minutes because they're cutting Tony Snell's minutes. Again, something I am totally behind and should have been done from day one in my mind. Brogdon, Dellavedova, they're just starting backcourt. That's how I think they should have run things from day one. And they're starting to do that now. But the thought process behind some of this stuff is confusing as anything. Now, Daly, this is a great game. 2 in a row. 16 points with 7 assists in 31 minutes. If he's getting 31 minutes a night, he's getting 6 or 7 assists a night, and that makes him a 12-team league guy. Not a must-own guy, but absolutely someone you need to look at in 12-team leagues because those assists are rare. They're hard. You can't find them. And if he's getting 31 minutes a night and getting 7 assists, then why wouldn't you want to look at him? As for Broggo, he had 6 points, he had 9 assists, he had 4 steals, and that's 2 piss-poor shooting nights in a row, so I'm not worried about him. I'm still holding on to Broggo. 2 of 8 from the field, and he was 1 of 10 the game before, so we're talking 3 of 18 over 2 games. Turn that into 9 and 18, you're looking at 2 brilliant games from Brogdon in this role, so it doesn't bother me that he starts over. The thought process, again, bothers me, because Brogdon was killing it in this role. But if you're going to play him 30 a night over Tone Snell, as you should, over Jason Terry, over Rashad Vaughn, who's mysteriously vanished from the rotation again after being introduced for about 5 games, that's fine. Also, Michael Beasley had that run. Huge run. Now he's a DNP CD. Can you stick to something for 5 minutes, kid? 5. That's all I'm asking. Beasley out of the rotation, Mirza Teletovic back in. If you picked up Beasley, you can't have a guy getting DNP CDs. Move on in a 14-team league. Because it's frustrating. He was doing everything in this role. He was fantastic for them. But nah. And I believe Teletovic should play. It's the thought process that makes no friggin' sense. Oh, here we go. Let's go on to the next game and talk about coaches with no thought process. The New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers. The Knicks get the victory, 109-103 against the Pacers. Musical chair backup center in full force. Kylo Quinn, 8 minutes. 3-3, and Billy Hernangomez, 24 minutes, 14-10 with a steal and 2 block. A big night from Bill. Fantastic night. And all this means is that Hernangomez is probably going to be a DNP CD the next game. This is exactly what has happened for all of the season. Now, I don't know if Hornacek watched Joakim Noah's airball free throw and just gone, seriously, do I have to play this guy? Because if I watched that, I would say, look, this guy's got no business on a basketball court. I'm not a good shooter. I could hit that. I could shoot that better 99 times out of 100. No, 100 times out of 100. And I know that free throw shooting is not the be all and end all, but that is horrific. And when you're horrible in every other area of the game apart from passing, Noah's finished. He's the third best of their centres. Now, whether they continue to start him or not, I don't know. What do you do with Bill? What do you do with Kylo Quinn? There is absolutely no way to know, because even the players have no way to know what Hornacek is doing with this. Players, media, fans, nobody knows what he is doing with this rotation on a nightly basis with these big men. So Bill could definitely be worth a look. In a 16-team league, grab him. But who knows what they're going to do moving forward. Mindaugas Kuzminskas back to 11 minutes, and that meant Justin Holiday played 32. He had 13 and 3 with 3 steals and 2 blocks. Huge night from Justin. He was almost eliminated from the rotation about a week ago. Now he's back. Should never have been dropped that low, but some good numbers from Justin. He is a 16-team league guy if he's in a solid role, while Brandon Jennings had played 29 minutes and had 9, 2 and 6 in those 29, while Derrick Rose scored 20 in 40 minutes for Derrick Rose. Porzingis, he was well off his game tonight. Well off. 25 minutes for Kristaps, 8 and 4 with a steal and a block. It's the perfect buy low opportunity. And buy low, I mean go low. People are going to be Knicks conspiracy theorizing. The tank is on. They're shutting him down. He's a skinny Euro. He's hitting the sophomore wall. Or whatever bullshit excuse they're coming up with. Buy low, buy very low on Kristaps. Again, a buy low is not sending a top 30 player for Kristaps. A buy low is sending a top 70 player. And saying, I'll take the punt on him. Maybe his Achilles probably isn't right. People will be willing to move on from him. They'll throw the skinny European tag out there. He just can't last an NBA season. He's breaking down. Same thing happened last year where whilst ignoring the fact that Kurt Rambis coached him into the ground with horrific minutes distribution, playing time, playing position, game style. Buy low on Kristaps. The Pacers, Paulie George, big game, 31 and 7 for Paul in 39 minutes. He's been disappointing on the surface, but when you look at his numbers, they're pretty okay. There's nothing to really be too concerned about. While Thad Young is now averaging 2.7 steals per game over the last month. That is making him a top 50 player. He only had 5 points here, but 3 boards, 3 assists, 3 steals. He is an elite source of steals. And by elite, I mean the the cream of the crop. The Pacers made a change to their starting lineup. Little dog Glenn Robinson III was out and CJ Miles was in. 34 minutes for Miles, 10 and 3 with a steal and a block. Took 14 shots, second most on the team, CJ. Hit 4 of them. Don't go and grab CJ. He's a guy to look at in 16-teamers. He's a guy to stream if you need threes and steals on the weekend. That's it. And obviously, Little Dog gets dropped. Monte Ellis suffered an ankle sprain towards the end of this game. He had 6-3 and 3 in 24 minutes. So even with a change at shooting guard, Monte is not getting back in. He played 24 minutes in a game with no Rod Stuckey and with no Aaron Brooks. This is Monte Ellis, I believe. That last game was somewhat of a fluke. And Jeff Teague was stinky in this game. 7-4 and 7. A horrific line. I had him in my DFS lineup, still cashed with it, but would have loved for him to have a big one because I reckon I could have taken down that Draft Stars tournament today if it wasn't for Jeff Teague laying a huge turd on my lineup. Let's move on to the last game of the night. It is the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Utah Jazz. I feel like I've gone very, very long today, so I do apologize for the length of this. Russ, triple-double, 38, 10 and 10, 4 steals, a block, 3 triples. Horrific percentage. That's pretty par for the course for Russ, while Oladipo had 18 and 4. The big news for Steven Adams' owners is that he returned. He played 37 minutes coming back from the concussion, 9 and 6, but getting 4 blocks out of Steven Adams is massive. He was a guy that for the first 2 months of the year was averaging under a block a game and then started really cranking it up throughout January, and that's a welcome return. Andre Robertson, 8 and 11 in 31 minutes, while Enes Kanter still played 29 with Adams back, 14 and 5 for Enes. He looks like he's going to be getting a 25-plus majority of nights now. Jeremy Grant went back to the bench and played 19 minutes, while Cam Payne, who'd been 20 minutes a night for 2 consecutive games, he played only 14 to make me sad. For the Jazz, Joe Ingles started but only played 22 minutes, which is a little bit of a concern, but I still think that he's fine to own in 12-team leagues. 6-2-2 for Ingles with 3 steals and was 3 of 5 from the field. Alec Burks played the most minutes that he'd played since returning. 25 minutes for Burks, 13-2-2 with a block. I don't think that Burks is a 12-team league guy. I don't even think he's a stash 12-team league guy. Because to me, even in 32 minutes a night, Burks is a borderline 12-team league guy as it is, let alone for a guy that's going to be playing a backup role when Rod Hood comes back. I just don't see him being a guy that you need to go and grab. Georgie Hill, he was poor, 2 of 10 shooting for 9 points with a steal and a block, while Gobert also wasn't his best game. Had 4 blocks, but only 12 of 9 in 36 minutes. Dante Exum back in the backup point guard role ahead of Raul Neto and Shelvin Mack. They continually seem to change that. Exum looked all right in this game, 8, 1 and 2, but nothing obviously to see for fantasy. While Boris Diaw led the team in assists, he had 5 assists. I don't think that's going to be something that happens all that often. Also, big news for Derek Favors owners, he had a double-double. He still shot the ball horribly, which is really impacting what he's doing this year. 42% shooting on 12 attempts, but a double-double with 2 steals is encouraging. I still do think that in most cases, he should be owned. Again, if you're really battling and he's been putting up some pretty piss-poor lines, then maybe you had to move, but I still do have faith in Derek Favors moving forward. All right, that does it for all the games from Monday. Apologise for the length of my ramblings and my rants there. Sometimes I just get a little bit carried away. I'm going to take a break now because I need to have a drink because my voice is getting a little bit sore. And then we're going to be back to preview the 6 games that we've got coming up on Tuesday.
Now I had a dream of you on that cold September night. I had nothing left to look forward to. I thought you were all I wanted, but I never really knew just what you could do. Never want to leave you 'cause I think it's worth to be alone. Times like this I wonder if I'd be better on my own. The constant torture of this love, something I might just disown. 'Cause I've got to wonder if I'd be better off alone.
All right, guys, we're back. Let's talk perfect DFS lines of the night on FanDuel. Kyrie at 63.4 and Drew had 62. These scores were absolutely massive, by the way. Drew at 62.2. Dion Waiters had 44 and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had 34.2. LeBron had 54. Paulie George had 42.9. Jabari Parker 53.1. Terry Jones had 59.7. And at center, the ultimate punt, Billy Hernangomez went for 35. That gave you 448 for a total cost of 59,900. On DraftKings, Kyrie, that's how you say it, 67.5. Dion Waiters, 48.75. Jabari Parker, 56. Luke Marmute, I don't think we'll see him all that often in the perfect lineups, 34.25. Terry Jones at 63.75. Drew's at 67.5. LeBron's at 62.5. And Bill Hernangomez, 37. That gave you 437.25 points for a cost of $49,700. Let's now talk about these games. We've got Boston traveling to Washington in the rematch between John Wall, Marcus Smart, the Jay Crowder touch on the nose scenario. We've got the Wizards deciding to wear all black for this game to be ready for battle. There needs to be a punch on. I know no one wants to see a punch on, but these two teams, stop fluffing each other up. Stop peacocking around. Someone throw one. I don't care who it is. Just throw a little one. Maybe if it's a sneaky one under the rim. Just do something. Don't boop each other on the nose. Don't threaten each other standing outside a locker room. Do something. I challenge you guys. I don't want to see punches thrown in the NBA, but just stop with the fake tough guy shit. That's what I want to see. Stop the fake tough guy bullshit. Nobody wants to see that. I would like to see Jay Crowder go for the nose touch again. That would be humorous. I don't really see him doing it. Let's get into the game now. Boston is favoured by 1. The total here is 220 points. Point guards. John Wall. Someone's apparently grinding concrete out the front of my house at 8:15 at night here. I don't really think there's a need for that, Mr. Concrete Grinder. I don't know if you could hear that. John Wall. Despite scoring 36 points in the last game, FanDuel's gone, nah, you know what? Let's bump him $1,000 up to $10,700. That is ludicrous. That is such a high price. And yes, this matchup is nice. It's a good matchup against Boston. But John Wall has struggled against Boston. He's averaging under 33 points the last 3 times he's taken on the Celtics. Really struggled in the last game. And there is no way that I want to spend $10,700 on John Wall. DraftKings has got it right. He's at $9,400. That's perfect. I think there's great value in that. You know, he's playing fantastically at the moment. He's a real shot to get you 50 points here. 10,700, is he getting 55 points? That's pushing the friendship, and there's no value in it at all. Just can't see that being a viable scenario. Avery Bradley's out for the rest of the week for Boston, so Terry Rozier is going to get extra minutes. He had 22 in the last game at 3,600. 6-game slate. I'm not sure if he's got high enough upside to be considered a GPP play, but he's not someone to totally write off. While Isaiah Thomas at 9,300, well, we know that he's flying. He's averaging 46 over the last 3, and at 9,300, there's absolutely some value there. He's the same price on DraftKings, the same story, except he's averaging 50 a game over there over the last 3. But the John Wall matchup is an issue. He's done well against Washington, but I feel that I'd put Isaiah as a GPP and I wouldn't want to trust him for cash. Because I just see every game he goes out there and shoots and scores at unprecedented levels, also unprecedented levels. I go and see him score at those levels and I go, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And every time that it happens, it makes me think that the next one, it's not going to happen again. And I'll continue to be wrong on that. But when the matchup says no, when common sense says no, I'll also say no. I'll take a risk on it in a GPP, but that's really about it. As for Marcus Smart, who'll be starting in place of Avery Bradley at 5,600, he is fine. He had 33 points in the last game. He plays much better in this starting role than he does as a reserve. He gets 35, 36 minutes, and he's a real chance to exceed 30 pretty much every time he goes out there in that scenario. So he's fine to use. Shooting guard Brad Beals at 6,700. I don't know. I think you're taking a risk with Beal. He hasn't been able to produce those sort of numbers recently. Same price on both sides. He's averaging under 30 points on both DraftKings and FanDuel. And at 6,700, you don't want a guy giving you under 30 points. You want a guy that's smashing 30. You want him 35, that sort of zone. Beal can do it. The matchup is there. I don't feel all that comfortable about using him. I would consider him a GPP only sort of a play. Small forwards. Jay Crowder is at 5,600. I think that's a fine price for Crowder. I've got no problem with using it. I don't think it's the best one on the board, but I think he's fine. He's 56 on DraftKings as well, where he's averaging 30 across the last 3 and 31 across the last 5. In fact, Crowder's lowest score on DraftKings in his last 5 is 27 points. And if he gives you 27 at 5,600, well, you consider that basically a break even. So no concerns with using Jay. As for Otto Porter, 6,300. Yeah, he's averaging 32 across the last 3 as well. The matchup is a marginally positive one for him. And I feel sort of okay with using. I don't think there's much upside in him. I think there is some cash game play. But even then, that just feels like it's probably priced $200-300 too much. Markieff Morris is crushing. He's at 6,400. It's a lot for Markieff, and that probably steers me, because even when he crushes like today, it only gave you 34 points. At 34 points, 6,400, it's just making that value. And he had a monster game. He shot 62% and went 22 and 8. Like, that's a huge night. And then to only just beat value, that makes it a fairly risky proposition. Same story for him on DraftKings as well. Jason Smith is at 36 on FanDuel, and he's at 3,000 still on DraftKings. So let's focus on DraftKings. I think there is value in using him as a cheap GPP guy at absolute minimum salary. Rozier is also minimum salary on DraftKings as well. Yeah, both those guys are very solid punt options that you can use to fit some other high-priced players in there if that's the route that you're going. Really tough to use Amir Johnson. At centre, Marcin Gortat, well, he's just struggling to get that value, 5,700 on FanDuel, as I touched on before. his minutes are really being cut into by Smith, so that he's a risky play. Kelly Olynyk at 4,100, no reason to trust him whatsoever. And at 4,600 on DraftKings, even less reason. But obviously, he can drop 40. You never know when it's going to happen because Brad Stevens will just occasionally let him play big minutes. And that's what makes him just a GPP type of a guy. Nothing screams to me that's an awesome spot here. 7,300 for Al Horford. I can't get behind that. But as you know, on DraftKings, I can always get behind it because he is always considerably cheaper over there. 6,800. He's averaging 35. No problem. Knock yourself out. FanDuel, yeah, no, he's probably going to knock your lineup out if you use him at that salary. All right, let's move on to the next game now. It is the San Antonio Spurs and Toronto Raptors. At this point, I am assuming that the Spurs go with the Dedmon starting lineup, but that could change. And if we hear that it's David Lee, then he becomes a good option. But at this stage, I'm expecting Dedmon to start. I'm also expecting Kawhi Leonard to play. Tone Parker is out, and Manu is listed as questionable. If Manu misses, John Simmons, Kyle Anderson get a bump, but it won't be big enough to really consider them, or not even any sort of DFS plays, really. On the Toronto side of things, we're waiting on the status of Pat Patterson. If he is out, Bebe Nogueira gets the boost there. He played 35 minutes in the start last time that Patterson was out. We'll talk about this assuming that Patterson plays. But if he is out, then Bebe and Jonas Valanciunas gets a bump as well. Point guard, Kyle Lowry, 8,400. I don't feel good about spending 8,400 on Kyle Lowry. His numbers have dipped recently. He's playing the Spurs. He had 30 in the last game. He's averaging 36, and he's 8,800 on DraftKings as well. They are not scenarios that I think really are conducive to great DFS play. So Lowry, not awesome for me. Now, the only thing I'll say about Lowry is that DeMar DeRozan is out for this game, so extra usage is going to fall his way. So that could work in his favour, but he is still at a very high price that is going to make it tough to consider him in cash, but I would look at him in GPPs. Really, that's the only scenario if he just takes on heaps of DeRozan's usage. I hope that a lot of that usage goes to Valanciunas. I'm not confident that it will, but I hope that it does. And that's the other scenario that I'd be looking at. But that's the only way you can say that Lowry is going to have a chance of being that value, but it's very high, especially that DraftKings price. For the Spurs, DeJounte Murray wasn't awesome today in his role. He's at 3,800 on FanDuel. He's listed as a shooting guard for some reason. I think that he's fine to use on a slate like this at 3,800. He's had 2 good games as a starter, 1 poor one, and even the poor one, it wasn't that horrible. He still had 14 points today, so it's not a terrible performance, and it's not far off that 3,800 worth of value. On DraftKings, he's at 4,500, so that makes him someone that I will not be interested in. Pat Mills, on the other hand, at 3,900, he probably feels a safer option to use, but again, using both these guys together is absolutely something that you can consider, and their price is so low that in cash games, their ceiling is not that high, but their floor feels like they could both easily get 19 points. And they get that, they repay their value, and then you get some other numbers in other areas. So that's what I like about those guys. Mills, as I said, 3,900. On DraftKings, he's at 42, so he is immeasurably the better play than Murray over there at $300 cheaper as well. Corey Joseph, he's going to play maybe a little bit extra with DeRozan out, play alongside Lowry at times. He's at $4,000. Don't hate him as a GPP option in case they go with a lot of Corey Joseph. I don't necessarily think they would, but he's absolutely an option. And at 3,900 on DraftKings, I think he's a very good option over on that side as well. Shooting guards, Norm Powell, I imagine, will start. He's at 3,900, and he has been putrid. That is absolutely no lie there. He's averaging 10 points in the last 5 games in 19 minutes a game. But previously this season, when he's gotten minutes, the production has been good from Norm Powell. So at 3,900, you have to like using him. 34 on DraftKings, that is fantastic. He's going to be highly owned. So whether you want to go contrarian on GPPs, you're probably going to have to miss him. I think he's going to be one of the highest owned players on the entire slate, filling in for DeMar DeRozan, a good record of playing when starting. He's going to be highly owned, so maybe pivoting away might be the best way to go. I think in cash there is risk associated, but I reckon at that low salary, the chances of production outweigh the risk when he's got such a low salary. Dan Green, really hard to use him. Small forward Terry Ross is another guy that's going to really benefit from DeMar DeRozan's absence. He's at $4,000. No, look, he is a guy that is very up and down with what he does, so he is a GPP only guy. But I reckon that if you're going to pivot off Norm, going on to Terry Ross is probably worth a look. He's at 42 on DraftKings as well. You're no worry to think that he's going to play potentially 30 minutes a night and get you 25 to 26 points. I think he can do that. With his fluky nature, he is still a guy that you probably should look towards more as a GPP type of play. DeMario Carroll's at 4,300, had a decent game in the last one, and without DeRozan, I reckon you can have a look at Carroll and feel okay, but I don't trust him enough to use him in cash games. Kawhi should be back, as I touched on already. He's at 10,100 on FanDuel. That is a big price hike. He's crushing it, no doubt about that. And he can absolutely, I wouldn't have any concerns about lingering injury or anything like that. 10,100 for Kawhi. You get yourself some Pat Mills, some Norm Powell, some Terry Ross, some DeJounte Murray. Get those cheap guys in, and that enables you to get 10,000 on Kawhi. It enables you to get 10,000 on Jim Butler. It enables you to potentially take a stab at a Kyle Lowry in a GPP type of situation. But I feel no issue with Leonard's injury here. He should be good for at least 45 to 46. He's at 92 on DraftKings. Again, no problem with that at all. Power forwards, yeah. The Raptors ones, yeah, Pat Patterson, Jared Sullinger, no. What about LaMarcus Aldridge? He's at 7,600. It just feels too high. He is averaging 36 and he had 41 today, but that was a game without Kawhi and it came on the back of some big defensive numbers, which Aldridge isn't well known for. At 6,900 on DraftKings.
Giggity!
I feel a bit better about it over there, and not just because it's at 69. I think that there is some use for him on DraftKings, but that 76 on FanDuel is probably just a little bit too expensive. At center, Dwayne Dedmon, minimum salary on FanDuel, 3,700 on DraftKings. He had a nice game today with 25 points. I think he is going to be one, along with Norm Powell, he's going to be one of the biggest or highest owned players, assuming we hear that he's continuing to start, which again, we don't know that just at this point. But I do assume that he will start, and if he does start, then I feel pretty good about using him minimum salary, even in a cash game scenario. As for Dave Lee, I talked about him already. He's at 5,900 on FanDuel. That is a nightmare of a price, and 51 on DraftKings. Really tough to consider him, especially if he's back to this bench role. Jonas Valanciunas at 6,000. He has struggled against the Spurs a lot, but that was when Gasol was playing. Gasol's not playing, so interesting to see what they do. But the pick and pop on Aldridge, it's a pick and rolls with Dedmon. It could be a real issue for Valanciunas. I would use him in a scenario that Pat Patterson is out. But if Patterson's in, it's going to be very tough to use Valanciunas. I would consider him GPP only, but this is a horrendous situation for him, and I'm not all that interested in using him in a lot of cases. Bebe, it's obviously just if Pat is out. He's at 4,000 on FanDuel, and he is at 3,800 on DraftKings. Great price if Pat happens to be out. All right, let's move on to the next game now. We're looking at the Toronto. We're looking at the Chicago Bulls taking on the Orlando Magic, the Magicians. The Bulls are favoured by 2.5, and the total is 206 points. Evan Fournier is unlikely to play, and DJ Augustine's MRI was negative, so he is questionable to play with a sprained ankle. If Augustine is out and Fournier is out, as we expect, then it's going to be so many minutes for CJ Watson. So many, and he becomes an awesome play. He's already in a spot to be a pretty good play here, to be honest, already, but he becomes an awesome guy to take a look at if those players are out, as we expect with Fournier. Lord Alfred Payton is at 6,700. We're assuming that Fournier is out. We know that Meeks is out, and Augustine could also be out. They're going to have to force feed big minutes to Alfred. 6,700 is a fair whack, but this is a great matchup. He's at 6,400 on DraftKings. He is crushing it. They're literally going to have to force him 40 minutes a game, and he's going to put up big numbers. So I like Lord Alfred Payton in this matchup against the Bulls. The Bulls point guards, Rajon Rondo, Mick Carter-Williams, Jaren Grant, well, none of them even got 20 minutes in the last game. Two of them got under 10. One of them didn't play at all. They went with more Jim Butler, more Dwayne Wade as the point guards, and that's the way they should be looking to do things. So no interest in those Bulls point guards. CJ Watson at $4,000. He's going to play big minutes. He had 20 points in 36 in the last one. He's at 4,000, which is not fantastic, but 3,700 on DraftKings is absolutely fine, and I think that he has good GPPs play in both, and I could even consider squeezing him into a cash if DJ Augustine is out. Again, if I just need that cheap filler type of a play, which is exactly what he is. Dwayne Wade is at $7,000. He dropped 55 in the game against the Kings after coming off a horrendous performance of 12 points against the Hawks. So which Dwayne Wade is it? He's a little bit up and down with what he does. 7,000 is a fair whack. I'm not totally on board with that. At 6,800 on DraftKings, yeah, given the way that the scoring goes there, I can get behind that price. I think that that's worth using, but I don't feel supremely confident about Dwayne Wade. Small forwards. We can talk Mario Hezonja, I guess. If Augustine is out, he should get 20 minutes, but it won't be enough to have an impact. Small forward, Aaron Gordon, 5,200. Yeah, I'm okay with Gordon at that price. He didn't play well in the last one, but he is averaging 27 across the last 5, including a stinker in his last time out. I think his ownership will be low. He can comfortably go over 30. No problem with using Aaron Gordon on both sides. Jeff Green.
My name is Jeff.
3,800 for Jeff. He's averaging 23 over the last 3 games, and they have to use him in roles to get some shots off with no Meeks and no Fournier and all those sort of guys out. Not a bad GPP guy. Jim Butler, well, he's a pretty good player in general. 9,600 for Jim. He hasn't been playing that well. 37 points over the last 3 games for Jim in 36 minutes, which at 9,600 is very far from cutting it. Aaron Gordon is a good defender. So it ends up being like a neutral matchup for Jim. If you're spending up money, yeah, he's one of the guys that you can look at, him or Kawhi in that small forward position. Yeah, Butler is fine to use, but his recent form has not been good, and that makes me just a little bit cautious, but I do think that he has some value. I think he's got some pretty good value, in fact. Paul Zipser, getting some minutes, not enough to care about, and Doug McDermott, yeah, you shouldn't be looking at Doug McDermott to rescue any sort of fantasy lineup. Serge Ibaka at power forward is at 5,900 on FanDuel. He has been terrible. He's averaging under 23 points over the last 5 games, and at 5,900, I just don't feel great about it. But it's the Bulls. The Bulls front court. Fantastic stuff for big men. Why wouldn't you have a punt on Ibaka in a GPP? All he's got to get is like 35 points to really crush his value. And against the Bulls, it shouldn't be that hard. I don't feel good about it. I don't feel cash viable about it. But I feel good enough to use him in a GPP. Taj Gibson at 4,700. I don't really feel good about using him in any scenario at this point. And Nick Mirotic, the same story. At centre, Nick Vucevic. Great spot against the Bulls. Really opportunity to tear him apart. But the last couple of games, Bismack Biyombo has been cutting back into his playing time. Which you know how I feel about that. And that's what puts Vucevic as just being a GPP guy. Otherwise, I would have considered him for cash, but not with the way that he's been limited lately, averaging just 24 minutes over the last 3 games, which included a fair chunk of blowouts as well. So it's hard to know if it was rotation-based, blowout-based. It's hard to know exactly the way that Frank Vogel is approaching that. That makes him a risky play. Robin Lopez is at 4,600. I feel okay about Lopez at that price. I don't think he's got high ceiling, but as a cash play, it's fine. And Chris Felicio, a little bit hard to rely upon him at this point. All right, let's go on to the next game. Where are we looking? My mouse is not responding properly. Here we go. The Los Angeles Clippers and the Philadelphia 76ers. No Joel Embiid, but Blake Griffin is likely returning. So the Sixers are going to get spanked, basically. The Clippers are favoured by just 3, and the total is 201. And Jahlil Okafor is listed as probable with right knee soreness. I imagine he goes, and I imagine he starts. Limiting Nerlens Noel to that 20-minute role. If Okafor happens to miss by any chance, then it's obviously all aboard Noel, and you can even consider Richaun Holmes an option in that scenario. As for Blake, he's not going to play full minutes straight up, I wouldn't have imagined, so I don't think really he should be in any sort of discussion. At point guard, I imagine Blake starts, Austin Rivers starts, and Ray Felton goes to the bench. Rivers is at 5,400 on FanDuel. It's fairly expensive. It's not terrible, but it's fairly expensive as a price. He dropped 37 today. He's averaging 29 over the last 3 and 28 over the last 5. And yes, those games have been without Blake, but we're not getting full Blake back for this game, remember. We're getting half Blake, and that might be enough for Rivers to have some decent cash value at that 5,400 price point. Ray Felton at 4,900, I don't feel great about that at all. I think he's going to go back and play 27, 28 minutes. He's averaging in the last couple of games only 25 points anyway, and at 4,900, that's far from meeting that value threshold. So I don't really see Ray being the guy to take a look at here. TJ McConnell at 5,500. He had 34 points in the last game, played nearly all of the point guard minutes, 37 minutes for TJ there. If 5,500 is fine, I've got no problem with using that. Not worried about the defense of Ray Felton or Austin Rivers or anything along those lines. I'm pretty good with McConnell at 5,500. I think he can be used. I think you could feel decently confident about using him. And yeah, I think that he's definitely got some value there at that price tag. Spanish Chocolate only played 7 minutes in the last game, so I'm not really sure we're going to be looking into him all that much. Shooting guard, Nick Stauskas, no. Gerald Henderson, no. JJ Redick at 4,700. With Blake back, I'm a little bit skeptical about using Redick. I think I'll pass. Same with Jamal Crawford at 4,200. Both those guys you could consider GPP players, but that's probably about it. Small forward Bob Cove, I love the way his minutes have come back up. He's at 5,400. He had 32 in the last game. I think that there's no issue with Bob Cove getting 27 to 28 points here, and that makes him a worthy guy to take a look at. At power forward, Nerlens at 4,000 has not been playing well, averaging just 14 in the last 5, and I don't imagine he's going to get big minutes in this game. So that's a risky play for me, so I'll probably pass on that. Šarić, the same thing. Ersan Ilyasova at 6,000. I really like Ersan at 6,000. I'm not sure if there's much GPP upside, but I do think that without Joel Embiid here, that Ersan should be able to exceed 30 points, and that's value to me at 6,000. Mo Spates gives us nothing now, and as I said, Blake, it's going to be real tough to use him. At centre, Jahlil Okafor's at 4,600. No problem using him. If he's ready to play, we assume he starts, he plays 28 minutes, and he should be able to exceed 25 points. No issue with using that player's name, which I cannot remember. Jahlil Okafor, that's the guy. No problem with using Jahlil Okafor at all. As for DeAndre Jordan at 8,400, well, he doesn't have to take on Joel Embiid now. Blake Griffin is back. 8,400 is a fair whack, and that's somewhat of a risky scenario to use him, but the matchup is a real positive. I would consider DeAndre a GPP type of a guy. Let's move on to the next game now. We're looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Phoenix Suns. The Suns are favored by 1, and the total here is 212. Rick Rubio should be back for this game. He missed the last game, and again, people are speculating that he missed the last game because he's getting traded. No, his grandma died, so he will be back for this game, pushing Chris Dunn back to the bench, so Rubio should be ready to go. Dragon Bender is questionable after spraining his ankle in the last game, suffering from a sore ankle in the last game. So it's not really impacting us too much. Obviously, the Rubio one is, though, and if he happens to miss again for bereavement leave, then we fire up some Chris Dunn. Although his salary is up to 4,700, so that's maybe making it somewhat risky in that scenario, but I would still use him if Rubio's out. As for Rubio in at 6,500, it's a great matchup for Rubio, but 6,500 is a big price. I don't really think that I'm all that interested in using him at that excessive price tag. Where are we? DraftKings. Rubio's at 6,600, same story. Eric Bledsoe is crushing it. FanDuel's bumped him by $1,000 up to 9,300, but I reckon if you're spending up on a point guard, especially on FanDuel, you don't want to spend that 10,000 plus on Johnny Wall. You can take the 9,300 on Bledsoe. He's averaging 49 across the last 5, and you should feel good that you're getting 40 plus points. Now, it's not going to be the best play on the board, but if you've got cash left over and you're spending it, then he's one of the guys that's in really red hot form and he's putting up great numbers. So I do like Bledsoe as a GPP type of a guy. On DraftKings, he's at 8,900, so a significant price rise over there as well. No problem with considering him an option on that side either. Brandon Knight, 3,700 for Knight. He's played 20 minutes in the last game, some decent increases in minutes, no production. But I think that he is a GPP option because he can have this random game where he goes off, but that's really all you should be considering with Brandon Knight at this point. Devin Booker at 6,500. I I think that Devin Booker at that price is definitely worth a look. 6,500 is a good price. He's averaging 32 over the last 3 games. Decent matchup for him. I feel pretty good about him. At 6,900 on DraftKings, I feel less good, but I still think that it's a good option for him. And in a decent spot here against Minnesota. On the other side, Zach LaVine at 6,200 has been terrible. We talked about him yesterday. He's averaging 19 points over the last 5, but he's absolutely got GPP upside here because not many people will be on him. The Suns' backcourt is not good defensively, and LaVine just needs to get hot, and then he can easily drop 40. So I do like Zach as a GPP type of play that I don't think many people will be all that interested in. At small forward, it's the Jays, PJ, TJ Warren at 4,500. No way of being able to trust him at this point. And at 46 on DraftKings, I just cannot get behind it. PJ Tucker at 4,200. He's averaging 23 across the last 5. And at 4,200, that's okay. But he's just such a low upside player that he's fine again in cash. Lock him in, get your 20 points, and feel okay about it. But there's just no upside with PJ Tucker. At 4,100 for him on DraftKings, the same sort of story. I just don't really see much of an upside with him at all in that sort of a scenario. We go at 7,100. Andrew Wiggins is just a GPP guy. I don't think there's any way you can really feel to trust him. And Shabazz Muhammad is another guy I like for GPPs. The Wolves went small last game and played him at the 4 a lot with Gorgie Jeng being limited. So Shabazz had 28 points, and at 3,700, that's great. And that makes him a very interesting GPP type of a play. At power forward, Marquise Chris at 3,700 just is limited by Watson's minutes limits, so that restricts what he can do, but he is a GPP upside play at 3,700. He can get more numbers than that. And Gorgie Jeng at 54, I have no way of trusting Gorgie or Tom Thibodeau at this point, considering Jeng's playing only 24 minutes a game over his last 3, and obviously that's severely impacting what he can do with his numbers. At centre, Tyson Chandler's at 6,200. That salary is rising, and it's making him a tough play at that increased salary. On DraftKings at 5,700, I like it. FanDuel at 62, I reckon I'm going to have to pass, and he's been money for a while. Karl Anthony Towns, 10,500 for Towns. He's averaging 54 across the last 3. He dropped 61 in the last game. I think that's absolutely fine to go with him. 10,500 on DraftKings. Expect 50 and hope for 60 is probably the best way of me phrasing that. All right, let's wrap this monstrous bastard up and go with the last game here, the Utah Jazz and the Denver Nuggets. We're talking about the Nuggets, who are favored by 2. It's a back-to-back for Utah. The total is 212. For the Nuggets, Gaz Harris, Darrell Arthur are both listed as probable, while Manny Mudiay, who missed the last game with back soreness, is listed as questionable. If Mudiay is out, it's going to be Jameer Nelson, it's going to be Jamal Murray are the 2 players who are going to benefit there. Let's talk point guards. Georgie Hill's at 6,300, really down night from Hill today, but I think that he is in a good spot against the Denver team, who is not good defensively. He's in a spot where he can definitely bounce back, so I like George Hill here. At 6,900 on DraftKings, I'm probably less bullish on it, but at 63 on FanDuel, I think that there's value in that. If Mudiay plays at 4,700, well, it's a terrible matchup. I'd be looking at Jameer at 3,700 as someone, and Jamal at 3,700. They're guys that I would look at as GPP players. If Mudiay happens to be out, both guys exceeded their value. Actually, that's not true. Jameer only had 10 points in the last game. Jamal had 29 points. I would look to use Jamal over Jameer as a GPP upside guy if Mudiay is out, and I would feel okay about putting Nelson as a cash guy, but less sure than I was before the last game. Gaz Harris had 34 in his return. $5,000 taking on the Jazz is a different kettle of fish, so I'm not sure that spending the $5,000 on Gaz is a no-brainer. It's absolutely useful, and it can be great, but I'm not 100% convinced on it in this matchup for Gaza. At 4,700 on DraftKings, I can totally get behind that more, and I think that he's worth a look over on DraftKings. Farton Will Barton, really hard to use him with Harris returning, and Alec Burks on a back-to-back. Even as at 3,600 and he had a big game today, on a back-to-back, I think it's going to be tough. Joe Ingles at 4,200, didn't have a great game today, but the matchup is very good. I think he is absolutely worth considering. At 4,900 on DraftKings, that doesn't appeal to me really in the slightest, but 42 on FanDuel is interesting. Gordie Hayward, 7,400, yeah, like it. Good matchup for him against the Rooster. Really like that. While Wilson Chandler at 5,400 is not something that's totally working for me. If he's going to have to bang up against Derek Favors and maybe occasionally Rudy Gobert, I'm not really thinking that's going to be in his best interest. He's at 56 on DraftKings, and that's less interesting over there as well. The Rooster at 5,600. I think there's upside in that at that price. The matchup is horrible, and he's been decent against Utah in the last few games. I think that there is some upside in using Gallo, but I wouldn't want to trust him as a cash game option. Same on DraftKings, where he's at 5,400. Derek Favors at 45. A nice game today, 24 points. Great matchup against a Nuggets front court that can yield some points. 4,500. No issue with using Derek. Actually, that's not true. Somewhat of a concern with using him just because it's a back-to-back and the way that he shot, but I am feeling a bit better about Derek. And at 4,500, I do think that he can be used. Darrell Arthur had a monster in the last game. He's at 3,700. A little bit different taking on the Jazz versus taking on the Wolves. But at 3,700, if he's going to drop 27 points, then you've got to consider him and you've got to put him into player pools at least. I'm not feeling totally confident with Darrell. He's at 3,000 on DraftKings though, so there's very, very few players who are better GPP options than Darrell Arthur. Nick Jokic is up to 9,800 on FanDuel. That's a $400 decrease from where he was. The matchup there is horrendous though, and that would probably lead me to fade Jokic here in this scenario, and it's hard to fade him because he's been playing well, but under 30 minutes the last two games, foul trouble, blowouts, all these sort of things, and now the matchup against Rudy Gobert. I'm as big a Jokic fan as there is. I just don't think that I'll be doing that against Rudy Gobert at that sort of an elevated price. Speaking of Gobert, he's at 8,100. I think it's a good spot for him against Jokic. I think he bounces back from a subpar game, and it's 7,300 on DraftKings. That's very hard to go past. I really do like him over there on DraftKings. All right, let's wrap this up now. Let's go into the picks of the day. Starting with FanDuel. Pat Mills is at 3,900. Lord Alfred Payton at 67, and Eric Bledsoe is at 93. Norm Powell at 39, assuming he starts for DeMar DeRozan, of course. Devin Booker at 65. At small forward, Terry Ross at 4,000. We talked about him just being a GPP type of a player. Bob Covers at 54 and Jim Butler at 96. At power forward, Derek Favors 45, Ersan Ilyasova 6,000, and at centre, Dwayne Dedmon 37, Nick Vucevic 66, and Rudy Gobert at 81. On DraftKings, CJ Watson 37, Lord Alfred at 64, and John Wall at 94. Shooting guards, Norm Powell 34, Devin Booker 69, and Jim Butler at 9,000. Small forwards, Terry Ross 42, Bob Covers at 56, and Kawhi is at 92. For the power forwards, PJ Tucker is a power forward over on DraftKings. He's at 41, Serge Ibaka at 61 in that GPP scenario that I talked about, while Karl Towns comes in at 10.5. And at centre, Dwayne Dedmon 35, Jali Okafor 52, and DeAndre Jordan 8,100. Let's move on to the Aussie sites. Moneyball, Pat Mills 35, Georgie Hill 56, and Bledsoe's at 91. At shooting guard, Norm Powell 35. Couple of minimum salary plays there. Powell and Mills are really awesome. Zach LaVine at 58, good GPP upside obviously. Small forward Joe Ingles at 39, Gordo Hayward at 75, and Jim Butler at 98. Power forward Derek Favors 43, LaMarcus Aldridge 7,000, and at centre Dwayne Dedmon 35, Robin Lopez 5,000, and Karl Towns 10.3. On DraftStar, CJ Watson 5,000, Alfred Payton 10,000, and Eric Bledsoe 15,650. At shooting guard, Joe Ingles 54, Dwayne Wade 11,150, and Gordy Hayward 14,750. At small forward, Norm Powell 50-50, Markieff Morris 10,550, and Jim Butler 17,550. At power forward, Darrell Arthur is a minimum salary player there, 5,000. Nick Jokic is just 13,450. And at centre, Dwayne Dedmon 68, Jali Okafor 85, and DeAndre Jordan 14,800. We are done today, guys. Check out today's sponsor, SeatGeek, and use that promo code LOFantasy for a $20 rebate off your first purchase and a way that you can support the show. That's a great way of supporting it just by entering that promo code on the app. So even if you're not intending to buy tickets, download the app, enter the promo code. Very, very simple, and it gives some great feedback to the guys at SeatGeek. Head across to patreon.com/redrock_bball and sign up for other ways to support the podcast. We are done. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Steve Kerr.